Hi everyone, good morning. I am Sarah Bramblette and here to present about FMLA and disability benefits. I have nothing to disclose. Wow, let's get applause. So you guys might have seen this on the internet a lot. Sometimes it has different pictures. Kind of my life can be described in one sentence. It didn't quite go as planned, and that's okay. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that in this room because I'm sure, I know for me it's been 10 years. I'm sure for some of you 2 or 3 years you never would have pictured yourself at this conference because you had no idea what these conditions were. I wanted to speak on this topic because I think there's a lot of lack of knowledge about our rights and benefits. And there's also, when it comes to disability, there's a lot of stigma around it. And that's a stigma that I myself had to get over. So this is what my life interrupted. You see the picture at the top is me in October of 1996. I graduated high school in 1995. My first job was a paper route. So I like to explain to people, I was an active child. We rode bikes, I had a paper route, and I was still overweight. So I first had a paper route, and then at age 16, I started working at Taco Bell. So I was very active. I actually had a friend in college who said she remembered coming to our hometown to visit and seeing me at Taco Bell and never had seen someone my size move around so much and smile so much. So the next picture is December of 2001 when I was diagnosed with lymphedema at The Ohio State University, but it was a different doctor at the time. Dr. Dean wasn't there yet, I don't think. But as you can see, my lymphedema greatly increased in 5 years. And so while I was working part-time and attending college, it got very difficult for me to get to class. I was also more interested in all the activities I was involved in. So come to the short, I found myself in the year 2000, didn't finish my degree and could no longer work. And I thought I was okay until about a week before my 23rd birthday, I had a doctor's appointment, and then a week after my 23rd birthday, I had a doctor's appointment. And my mom had told me I didn't age off their insurance until 25, and I found out I aged off at 23. So I started getting medical bills. And again, I was living at home, but I had no health insurance. My parents couldn't afford medical bills. So I had to go and sign up for government assistance. And it was a point in my life where I say it was my rock bottom because there was so much stigma around it. But I mean, what else can you do when you have, I didn't even know what I had at the time. I just know I had huge legs and they were getting affected a lot. So I went and applied and I got on SSI and Medicaid. While I was on that, I was trying to get better. So I used vocational rehabilitation and some of those programs. Being on Medicaid and with the work I did, I actually got my first real job and moved to Miami, Florida. And I remember when I called them to tell them, I'm working now, so I won't qualify for anything. The lady said, well, you don't have enough work credits, but if you work for 2 more years, you can get disability. And I said, why would you tell me that? I got off of it. Why would you tell me how to get back on? But now I understand, because as you can see, just briefly, I have kind of been through the gamut. And I'm currently on SSI or SDI disability and Medicare. And so I'm going to kind of give overview. It's way too much to put in a 20-minute conversation, but I just wanted to give some overviews and give people the information of where they can actually get facts, because I see a lot of people on social media asking other people questions. And if they don't work with you or know your exact condition, they can't answer those questions. So I wanted to give the resources where you can actually find out the correct information. So the first thing I wanted to mention was FMLA, which is the Family and Medical Leave Act. And it provides up to 12 weeks of unpaid, I'm going to repeat that, unpaid job protective leave per year. Part of that also requires that they maintain your health benefits through your job. So if you have health benefits to their job that they contribute part of, they have to continue contributing that part. Now, if you do have time off and you're using paid leave, because that's what you have to have, some type of if you have vacation time or sick leave to take, then your portion might be covered. But if for some reason you run out of paid time off and you are completely unpaid, they might bill you for your portion of that insurance, but at least you keep your insurance. This is one thing I wanted to point out too, because I've been told by an employer, the time does not have to be taken altogether. So if you need to take it to get your MLD or to wrap or to leave, maybe take off some for surgery and then go to a surgical follow-up appointment, it can be taken in blocks, of individual blocks of time intermittently. It doesn't have to be taken all at once. So, and here's the list that came from the website of what it is, and I just wanted to point out that it's to care for an employee's spouse, child, or parent, or the employee's own condition. So not only could you take it, but if you need your spouse, or like for instance, my mom has taken off work to come help me after surgery. So those are the two I wanted to highlight so people understand. Some things you need to understand though, you have to work for a covered employer. So not every employer has to follow these guidelines. So again, I have the website at the bottom if people want to look. It's a .gov website. That's what you want to look for. But all public agencies, public and private schools, and companies with 50 or more employees are supposed to follow this. But then you also have to be what they call a covered employee, which means you usually have to have worked there for 12 months and you have to have so many hours worked or be a certain status. And that last one, the work location, that might, I just took it from the website, but that might apply to you, it might not. But again, these things any type of federal regulation is not going to be simple. So, and you want to make sure you look things up in writing. So if you do think you're going to need FMLA, they would suggest asking you, first of all, you definitely need to contact HR. They're the ones in your company or your employer who is going to be able to provide that for you. And they suggest asking for it 30 days in advance. Not everything are you going to have a 30 days advance notice. But the rule is you're not supposed to use it as like a weapon or to try to harm your employer. They want you to everyone's supposed to work in the best interest of each other. So as much time as you can give, you should try to give them notice. There is forms you need to fill out. You do not have to tell them exactly why or your diagnosis. So you wouldn't have to say, I have lymphedema and I'm having liposuction, but you do have to say something like, I'm going to be having surgery inpatient and there's a certain amount of recovery time, because you actually have to request it and they have to determine if you're eligible to take it. But this is a time when HR, you really need to work with them and make sure that you have everything in writing and you understand your rights and the company's policy, because some policies can vary. For example, the 12 months can vary if it's an actual 12-month calendar year or if they work on a rolling calendar. Like if you had surgery in June, then your 12 months starts in June to the end of May. So that's something you need to understand with them. So then, say you need a little bit more time off. This is when disability insurance comes through. And typically, how many people know if they have disability insurance through their employer? Okay. It's sometimes optional, and I know some people opt out because you want as much money to come to you in that paycheck. I'm telling you, if you have the option, to get it. If you don't have the option through your employer, there are individual plans out there. And short-term disability usually means 3 to 6 months. Again, it can vary by the policy. So you want that information, in writing. You either need a website or have maybe a hard copy of it. And again, if you're out for surgery or some type of short-term injury, this would cover you. It won't give you your entire income. It's usually a percentage of your income. And again, that varies per plan. Now, if you need a little bit longer after your short-term runs out, you go into long-term disability. It can be from months to years. Again, depends on the policy. And it pays, again, just a percentage of what your actual income was. Again, if you don't have it now, I would recommend getting that option during open enrollment or looking in a plan while you're healthy and while you don't need it. Because once you need it, you either might not be able to get it or your premium is going to be higher. And if you get it now, most policies automatically renew, so you might have to give health information now, but as long as you pay your premiums, you'll keep it without having to update health information. So it's definitely something you want to look into. And I would suggest that not just to everyone in this room, but to all my friends, anyone, because you never know what's going to happen. So, say you're on long-term disability and things aren't getting better and your plan's going to run out, you might need to go on Social Security disability. And I know I see a lot of people on Facebook ask, can I get disability for lipedema? Can I get disability for Derkham's? And sometimes respondents are, yes, I get it. And then I see so many people say, no, don't do it, don't give up, try to work as hard as you can, try to work as long as you can. There's nothing wrong with needing to take time off if you need to take time off. And again, you've already heard this morning how stress can affect you, how gravity can affect you. Don't take your pride, don't put your pride above your health overall. So it's nothing to me. So there are two different types of disability programs through Social Security Administration. Supplemental security income, and that's what I was originally on, because although I had worked since I was age 16, they look at work credits when you're past age 22 at the time. So although I had worked, I hadn't worked enough. So that was just based on the fact of my financial situation and my income. And then it also made me eligible for Medicaid at the time. Social Security disability insurance is what we've paid into when you see that taken out of your paycheck. So that's what we paid into. And so that's based on your work history and how much you've worked and your how much income. And the monthly amount varies by what you've earned and how long you've worked. And then if you get SSDI, you'll become eligible for Medicare after 2 years. I wanted to show you, because a lot of people think I can't afford to live off disability and they don't even know what the amount would be. And sometimes it's even more than they're currently making because they've cut their hours down so much that they're not bringing home that much. So this is an example. This is an example of the Social Security website. Anyone can log in and create them an account at my SSA, the website's down there, but my account, and it will pull up this statement. It'll show you all the years you've worked and what you and your employers have paid in. It'll show you your work history. And then this statement will show you what your benefits would be if you retired, but I highlighted what your benefits will be if you were to become disabled. And I can tell you from experience, that's a little higher than average. So, but then again, how do you qualify? It's a very individualized process. You can't base it off if someone else got this, received it. So, but the law defines disability as the inability to engage in substantial gainful activity, which is if you're working and they usually base off what you make. So that for 2018 is $1,180 a month. So if you're working now and you're not making this much, you could possibly apply even though you're working. And sometimes they look at how many hours you work a week, and it's about 20 hours. So if they think if you're working more than that, you're not disabled under that, you could. And they use by reason of any medical or physical mental impairment. And then this is always the fun one, which can expected to result in death or last more than 12 months. So that's always the happy. Are you going to die? But these are the 5 steps they go through. The first one, as I mentioned, are you working? And if you are, do they consider it substantial gainful employment? Is your condition severe? How does it affect your ability to work? How does it affect your activities of daily living? And again, they will ask for medical records. I've had people think like, oh, I can't even gather up everything to give them. Once you go to the website and start a process or go to the website and get information, they will help you with that process. They will you sign a consent form and they will request medical records. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. They will help you. They do have a list of disabling conditions. They also have a list, I'm gonna talk about it more on the next slide, but they have a list of compassionate conditions also. It's not a guarantee if you're on that list, but that just makes it quicker for them to see if you have one of those conditions, then it kind of speeds up the process to the next steps. So even if you do have a disabling condition, can you still do the work you previously did? And this is where I say it's very individualized. Someone who's always worked on their feet becomes disabled, they might say, well, yes, now you can work an office job. For myself, I had always worked office jobs, when I was working in higher education and everything, and I can't even work an office job because I think most of you know sitting for long periods of time are still difficult on our legs. So, and then if you can't do the work you previously do, this is where you can you work do another type of work? So that's like kind of their 5 steps, a thought process. So as I mentioned, they do have a list of conditions called compassionate allowances. And it's conditions they already know usually meet their standard of what a disabling condition is. As I mentioned, they primarily include cancers, adult brain disorders, but rare disorders. It says affect children, but when I looked at the list, it covers many rare disorders. I know, and I was, when researching this, it was interesting because primary lymphedema is on the list. And I know that a few years ago there was someone trying to do a petition to get Derkham's disease on the list, but I don't see it. And the last hearing that I saw listed for compassionate conditions was in 2011. So there is a way we can submit to get one listed, and I talked to Cheyenne about FDRS picking that up if it hasn't happened. So if anyone knows the status, or if an actual, I know there was a petition going, but if an actual submission to Social Security went in for Derkham's disease, we can work on that, because your level of pain and everything kind of affects your ability to work full time. And so here's the next thing. Even after you get Social Security, it doesn't mean you're never going to work again. They actually have special rules to help people who want to find ways to get back to work. Again, the definition is something that'll last at least 12 years. Once you get on Social Security disability, they might say you're permanently disabled and never review your case, but typically they review cases for medical determination every 3 to 5 years or 5 to 7 years. And I'm actually up every 3 to 5 years. So every 3 to 5 years, I have to go through a mini application process again, get updated medical records. I went back to school and got a master's degree, so I had to let them know that, because they might consider that, well, now you're more educated. So I don't want people to think it's like the end of the world and you're never going to do anything again, or you're never going to feel productive. Let me tell you right now, between the organizations I volunteer with, I think I work more than a full-time job. But I work it from my bed at home with my legs elevated on a laptop. So that's just what it is. So they have work incentives. And so sometimes you can write off your expenses to work. Sometimes they don't count as much income for you. So these are the ones that apply to both of the programs. And then this is the one divided up. And like I had mentioned, when I was on SSI, I did the plan for achieving self-support. I was in college, and I was working as a graduate assistant, and so they didn't count my income because I was putting that money towards my education to get off of it. When I did go back to work, I was the trial work period, which is 9 months where you get to work and make any income you want, and you still get your disability benefits, which is kind of nice. And it gives you that way of testing, am I going to be able to maintain? Because everyone says, well, you traveled to Dallas this weekend, obviously you could work. No, I traveled to Dallas, I took a whole day to rest after the travel, and I'm going to be here for 2 days and go home and recover for a week. That's not working an 8-hour job, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. That's different. So, and after my trial work period went up, they had what was at the time called the bond program, where they only counted 1 out of every $2 of my income against me. So like I said before, there's nothing simple about any of this, but it exists, and it's a way to try to get people, if they want to try to ease back into the work system, that they can without completely losing benefits. And you can keep your Medicare for a couple years. So it really encourages people to try to do more. And if you can't, you can't. But at least these things do exist, so if anyone finds himself on it but wants to, and as a side note, sometimes you need extra money. They do allow you to work up to a certain amount, and government benefits doesn't cover everything you need in life. So, but that's my contact information if anyone wants to contact me. You want me to leave this up here? Pretty good.